And yesterday, he turned against the DA. Now, this is, in our view, treasonous and not right. But ultimately, we have already moved with proceedings to say that we must cessate his membership, and he will no longer be a member of the DA. He's already categorically stated he's leaving, and I think the sooner he does that, the better for him. Fellow South Africans, Nelson Mandela Bay is a question of a contestation between those who want to, on one end, deliver houses, ensure South Africans get a job. I've never been more proud of going into that city. A city that never used to have a metro police now has one. A city that never used to have housing for our people, now they've worked hard to build houses, to deliver. A city that was riddled with corruption now has waged a war against all corruption in that city. It's a battle between those who are focused on delivery and a battle between those who are committed to stealing. It's not me saying it. It's the former president of the ANC, Jacob Zuma, who publicly admitted when he was addressing the people of Nelson Mandela Bay. He said in the ANC Zamatola's regional conference in the Eastern Cape in 2017, he said, of all the metros, I won't talk about Nelson Mandela Metro because you all know about it. We ruined it for years, bit by bit. Now the opposition is in charge. We cannot say we are surprised by that. Now, if Andile Lungisa is back in the Mako, what has changed? Nothing. This is still now an effort to recoup the funding in the elections, to continue, as Crispin Oliver so crisply put it, to steal a city. And ultimately, we hold the ultimate view that says this is not to the benefit of the people of Nelson Mandela Bay. It will ultimately have sacrifices in the process of building a government there. And fellow South Africans, what's become very clear is that the alliance between the ANC and the EFF and the UDM have now been brought together. The decision to say you will remove the DA and bring this new alliance on board is well on its way. And perhaps it goes to show that when political parties stand up before the electorate and say that we've come here to oppose corruption, often what they mean is we oppose the corruption we're not a part of. In the DA, we will not put up with corruption. We will not coalesce with corruption. We will stand strong against it. It is often quite ironic that in 2016, when the EFF councillors voted in Mogale City to put the ANC back into power, the EFF fired those councillors. I find it extraordinarily bizarre to say what has changed between 2016 and now. And my only conclusion can be that perhaps their opposition was only to Jacob Zuma. And now that Cyril Ramaphosa is back, they feel that their faction has won and will continue to become the military wing of the ANC. So ladies and gentlemen, we continue to fight. We'll continue to serve the people of Nelson Mandela Bay, for we never wanted to go into government for our own jackets. We always wanted to put the people of Nelson Mandela Bay first, and I really believe the coalition between the ACDP, between the Congress of the People, between the Democratic Alliance, and later now the PA, has remained resolute in that vision and have done an admirable job, not only in supporting Ethel Trollet, but in working with the team there to do the exceptional work that the team in Nelson Mandela Bay of those coalition members have been doing. The people will recognize it and know it for themselves, that the future of South Africa is with those parties who are working to deliver for the people. I'm going to hand over to the Mayor to continue to speak about some of the things that they've worked to achieve.
Thank you very much, Mmusi. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the opportunity. I was involved in an historic campaign in Nelson Mandela Bay, where we as a party had planned years in advance that we wanted to win Nelson Mandela Bay. It was a long campaign, and the ANC support had been waning over a number of years and a number of elections, and they were at a precipitous 51% when we embarked on that campaign. The people of Nelson Mandela Bay voted for change. We promised change, and in that promise we made three very basic undertakings to the citizens of Nelson Mandela Bay. We said that we would stop corruption, we said that we'd grow the economy to create much needed jobs, and we said we'd improve service delivery. Well, there was almost a 17 percentage point swing between the DA and the ANC, and the DA became the biggest party at 47%, and the ANC around 41%. We were able to put a coalition together, and we were able to coalesce around those three promises as coalition partners to make sure that we stopped corruption. We stopped corruption to the tune of at least 615 million rand with contracts that we stopped immediately after taking office. We did grow the economy. We had periods where we showed significant growth as a region, and we all know that cities have become drivers of regional economic growth. We also went through some slumps due to the national situation of our country, the political situation, and the lacuna of leadership under Jacob Zuma. Our city suffered under that, and we have the highest youth unemployment. But we have turned that around. We've tripled the number of EPWP jobs. We have a youth unemployment program. We have an unemployed graduates program, never been had in our city before. We also have increased our financial situation, stronger than it's been in 10 years. We have the top-rated credit rating, AAA-ZA, the same as the city of Cape Town, and we're very proud of that. We've also been able to reduce crime in areas that have been notoriously bad. We've introduced ShotSpotter, amongst other initiatives, where our Metro Police collaborate with the South African Police Services. We've brought crime down in notoriously crime-ridden and gangster-ridden areas. We're very proud of that. And the IPTS buses that we'd spent 2.5 billion rand on over 10 years, and none of them were on the road. They're on the road now. Every day there are more and more people traveling on those buses. These are important successes that we have achieved. But most importantly, the objective achievements where the Treasury identifies that we're governing well and that we spend our capital budget and we spend our capital grant funding. We received windfall funding to the tune of 179 million rand this year from Treasury, which was taken away from metro cities that couldn't spend their money. That windfall funding allowed us to put that money into augmenting our water reserves, because we are facing a terrible drought in our region. So when you govern well, you get recognition from Treasury, you get windfall funding, you're able to do things that you weren't able to budget for in the beginning. So those are the benefits to the people of our city. But 2 years after the change came to our city, the people that have been on the outside, the people that wanted to steal the city, the people that were exposed for stealing the city, had had enough. They run out of money. As Mmusi Maimane said, he quoted the ANC chief whip at the time, Councillor Gidani, who said, "Asna mali." Now that we're out of government, businesses won't give us any money. They know that there's an election coming. They were desperate to take over that city. The public purse is fatter than it's ever been before in Nelson Mandela Bay, and the stakes are very high. There's a national election coming, and they needed access to that purse. So we saw the ANC, the UDM, and the EFF collaborate with one DA councillor to oust this administration of ours, a coalition government that had fulfilled its promises of delivery to the people. They collaborated to get rid of us, but their contrivance was, we believe, unlawful. And we're going to challenge that. We're going to challenge it in the courts, because we believe that the MEC undermined or overrode the responsibility of the city manager, and we believe that he overreached. I want you to know that there's history between the MEC and our city manager. The MEC is litigating against us, against the city manager's appointment. And I want to reinforce that Mr. Metler had been appointed by the previous administration. In fact, he was seconded there by Praveen Gordhan. We appointed the city manager, and we appointed him according to the law. The MEC is challenging that, and we are in court against him. So there's history of enmity between the MEC and the city manager. And what the MEC did yesterday, by seconding an official without even approaching the city manager to deal with the impasse, we believe is overreach, and we will be challenging that today in court. Thank you.
Thanks, Apple. Thanks, Mmusi. So we're going to be simple. We'll take 3 rounds of questions so that we can give each other a chance. Just do the normal business of introducing yourself and the media house that you're representing, and then the leaders will respond on those 3 sets of questions, and we can go forward. So who are the first round? Jan? Anybody else? Wada? And Jason, in that order. Yeah.
Good morning. I'm Jan Gerber from Houston. First off, a question for Mr. Trollip. Do you consider yourself at the moment mayor? And is your office locked by Mr. Tabani enter and proceed being mayor? Secondly, what does this mean? Yesterday's event, what does it mean for other coalition governments, specifically Joburg and Tshwane? And thirdly, how did it happen that the DA has a weak spot in the council in Cape Town? Also, are you satisfied that going forward to the next elections that you won't have candidates who are a weak spot being accused of fraud, etc.? Thanks.
Okay, cool. Who was second between Wada and Jason?
You sort of covered most of my things, but maybe an added question on where will this legal application be filed? Is it in what province or what court?
Jason?
It's a question to Mmusi. The EFF said that the next of their sites is Solling Simanga. I just want to get your response to that. And just a question to Mr. Trollip. Mr. Trollip, I'm sure you know in Cape Town there's going to be a vacancy for mayor soon. Are you up for that vacancy or not? Just a naughty question if I'm allowed.
Okay, I'll start because I think only 2 were directed at me, and then Mmusi can deal with the rest of them while the mics are here. First of all, Jason, I'm not up for the position for Mayor of Cape Town because I'm currently the Mayor of Nelson Mandela Bay, and you can't hold 2 positions at the same time. So let me go to Jan's question. Yes, Jan, I do believe I'm still the Mayor. I believe that what transpired after the replacement of the Speaker yesterday is unlawful. That is why we have briefed legal counsel, and that legal counsel will be going to seek review or declarator. That will be done in the High Court, the Eastern Cape High Court in Nelson Mandela Bay. Yeah, I think I've answered those questions.
Jan, you ask a very important question about coalition governments. I believe in coalitions. I think coalitions are the future of South Africa. I think any political party that thinks that we should find ourselves in a situation where we have a one-party state, it would be amiss. It's a robbery to the citizens. Because I tell you, that's how state capture occurs. It's those who are in power behave in an arrogant manner that tells them that they can loot their resources, capture the state, and ultimately have no accountability as a result. It would be dangerous for voters. If next year voters come out to vote, I think they must learn the lessons, because otherwise state capture is going to occur again. We didn't fight this election so that we can get a better behaved ANC. But the only way we get political parties to actually do what citizens want to do is to exercise their vote. And that's why coalitions are so crucial. But coalitions are also principled. You know, as leader of the DA, we stand for certain things. It doesn't mean when you enter a coalition, you surrender those things. I've never asked the EFF to surrender their project on nationalization. We're not in coalition with them. I'd never ask any other party, and therefore as a DA, we'll always stand for one South Africa for all. We'll always stand for an economy that includes all South Africans. We'll always stand for the principle of constitutionalism and the rule of law and intolerance of corruption, and ultimately a space upon which we are addressing historical injustices. That's the DA's project. We will coalesce with parties that want to stand for those things, that believe that, in fact, private citizens have the power to be able to create wealth. That's why when it comes to even voting on expropriation without compensation, We think citizens must be able to own land in their own rights. And that's why we want to ensure that there's transfer of land to the people, not to the state. So we are not going to abandon that principle. So if you go into a coalition and abandon who you are, then ultimately that coalition is not a coalition, it's a merger. You must say you've given up your entire identity, you are now the same party. That's why the ANC and the EFF can then work together, because I'm not sure what the EFF opposes of the ANC and vice versa. It's the same WhatsApp group, but it's the same thing. So that's on one level. So you ask me, but Mr. Manyati knows very well that if he was found guilty of fraud, he would be fired from the party. He knows it very well. We don't harbor criminals. We don't keep people in our structures. It's in the constitution of the DA. So in this particular instance, he was facing court action. And therefore they said to him, we'll assist you with this legal matter if you cooperate with us in this regard. But fortunately, he'll no longer be the member of the DA. But be assured, there's nowhere, anywhere where I know people have convictions against them.
Cool, thanks. We'll take the second round. I'll start with Yan Yan. We'll come to you, Paul, and then you'll go to the third round start.
Thank you, Chair. Yan Yan from Victoria Media. Leader, there is also a world outside of Port Elizabeth and Tshwane, and that is a number of councils where you co-govern with the EFF and to some degree at their pleasure. What is the state of cooperation and contact between the EFF and the DA at present on a national, or what the DA might call a federal level? And to what extent has the DA leadership built a wall against the EFF being forced to the ANC by the attacks upon them from within the DA, thereby creating a situation which is perhaps worse for DA supporters?
It's from Hardeggen. I just want to find Mr. Maimane. Why did you come to Cape Town when there was something happening in PE? Because the council took place in PE yesterday, and why is the mayor here? But things happened in PE. And lastly, we saw a letter on Twitter yesterday where Mr. Manyati said that you are not allowed to terminate his membership. So what's going to happen to that?
Cool. Paul?
Paul Bekliota, Bloomberg. Just to follow up on the coalition, what lessons can we extrapolate from this on managing a coalition? Secondly, the coalition that's now governs Port Elizabeth, what are the chances of that holding together?
I think you skipped me, man. Can I just ask my question?
No, you're going to the second round. Take three at a time. You'll be the second on the third round.
All right.
Yan Yan, you ask a very important question. I've never gone out where we've worked together with the EFF and have agreed on issues where they will sponsor and support. It's worked well. And now we have to ask the question, what has changed? The only change I can only assume is the introduction of Mr. Ramaphosa. It's now to a point where, I don't know when last, did you hear the EFF speaking even about an issue like Marikana as a basic issue of an injustice against people? So we have to ask that question. And secondly, along with that, I have so we are of the view that as part of the politics, it would not be us who have pushed the EFF back to the ANC. It would be the question of saying, you can't force us to change principle. You can't say to the DA in Parliament, you will vote for expropriation without compensation. But you can remember, when I started to say they will remove Ethel Trollip, it was them saying to us, if you don't vote on expropriation without compensation, we'll remove you. What kind of party would we be if then at that point we say, no, we'll stay in government and dissolve all our principles? You can't do that. It's not what you told the people. When you tell South Africans you want them to own land in their own right as individuals so that they can prosper and pass that wealth to future generations, that's your promise to them. You can't now say, oh, well, to stay in government, you are going to compromise your principles. And I think, more than anything, it's been a question of them pushing us away, saying, you are wanting to hold on to your principles, you are not wanting to come to be the EFF. Because if we reject the whole idea of Section 25 and that, we don't stand for individuals. It would be tantamount to us then surrendering our principle. And I think that is the issue. And therefore, the reason why there's a toenadering between the EFF and the ANC is because they agree on those issues. They agree on nationalization. So they are one and the same. That's why I'm saying we must be careful when voters vote to say you are voting for the ANC, because frankly you're voting for the EFF. And if you're voting for the EFF, you're voting for the ANC. It's the same. So,
Just from the federal,
and I'll come back to that. The relationship, I've had no problems with the EFF's leadership. We've had contact and all of that, because I still believe more than anything, I'll always continue to want to build here. And that's why I'm speaking from here. I've always been to Nelson Mandela Bay. I attended the council meeting where they wanted to move things. So, and I think this is a South African issue more than anything. I think we'd be fooling ourselves if we think this is just about Nelson Mandela Bay. It's a South African issue. It's the choice that you want voters to make. Do you want to choose a mobilization around corruption, or you want a mobilization that serves the people? That's the South African issue. Nelson Mandela is one issue, but remember tomorrow it could be Tshwane, it could be Joburg, it could be wherever. We will always stand up for people, for people. Nowhere in any of these new governments have there been money that's been stolen by any of our people, because they always wanted to prioritize putting money back to the people. So that's where the coalition is strong, and I want to applaud the leaders who've stood resolute in Mr. Lekota, in Mr. Mishwe, in Mr. Groenewald, and the leaders even in the Patriotic Alliance. They have worked hard to make sure we hold the line. When Mr. Bobani was asking us to advance monies, we simply said, no, we are not going to do that, and we held the line strong. Today, through the back door, he's now the mayor of Nelson. He's a nominee for mayor of Nelson Mandela Bay. Paul?
No, I did ask a question because we saw that issued a document said that is going to interdict the DAs to remove or terminate his membership.
The DA's constitution is explicit. You stand up publicly, you say you are not going to be a member of the DA, you are leaving the DA. He made that statement categorically. Worse than that, to make it egregious, he even went across in council and said with ANC people, for all intensive purposes, he's a member of the ANC. So how can he stay in the DA? So he can write any letter he likes. I will see him in court if that's what he wants to do. But make no mistake, you can't be a member of the ANC and the DA at the same time. This man is a member of the ANC now, in our view. Paul, I think I've already spoken a lot about the lessons. Coalitions must be focused on principle. There must be, in fact, coalitions that work well. Work with parties. I think, Yan, in your book, you write so well about this issue. About saying that coalitions where parties are vastly different actually work, because they're not contesting for constituencies. They actually work on their agreements that say, here's what we're going to focus on in delivery. This is a true lesson in not only in Africa, but it's also a true lesson in Germany, where there are coalitions, the Netherlands, the UK. So this is part of the common cause. We should know it. South Africa is not immune to the situation. It's a good thing. So long as you can agree on a government program that says you will deliver, you will not stand up for coalitions, you will not stand up for corruption, you will ensure that you deliver for people, you'll ensure that you based your market-based economy, you will always be non-racial in your view, because the moment you say, we'll pick this mayor because of the color of their skin, etc., then you've got problems. If you were to say to me what's been one of the more difficult lessons is that you should always make sure parties are committed to that principle. And when members violate that principle, those parties must be willing to act. I can't tell you the countless times I asked even Mr. Holomisa to act against his own councillor in this regard, and there was a delay. It was only up until recently that his party decided to take action against him. So the key lesson here is always that you need institutionally strong parties to ensure that they can deal with their lessons going forward. Lastly, I think this question of the chances of this coalition, if it stays, the biggest victims will be the people. Because you don't change your reputation by what you are going to do. Your reputation precedes you. The ANC government looted the city. That's their own. Crispin Olivier has made it quite clear. It's a unity of corruption. That's what it's set up for. So I think they must take a good leaf out of Minister Batabile Dlamini.
Basis of trust, and you've got to have some rules. We have a co-governance agreement, which is very clear about what is expected of all the coalition partners, and when people are in breach of that, there are certain steps to be taken. Now, we've also learned that you must not sacrifice the principle for the relationship. It must be the other way around. We were prepared to do that with Mr. Bobani. We spent nearly 6 months talking to Bantu Holomisa, coming to Cape Town. I've written 26 letters to Bantu Holomisa about the infractions by Councillor Bobani, and eventually I had to relieve him of his responsibility as the mayoral committee member for public health. So you've got to be able to say at a certain point, look.
Two hands in the previous round, so Chris will go first, and then
Councillor Andile Lungisa and Councillor Nombiba.
Chris, and you'll be the final one.
Chris Maboya from the SABC News. Just short two ones. The first one is, how soon is the DA going to challenge what happened yesterday? And then the second one is it not
whether is it about the party's ability to resolve a dispute? Let's understand there's a difference in style. Say there's a dispute about this style. We worked hard. The Mayor Ethel Trollip has already said I worked hard to bring people together. We met with the leadership. We continue to discuss the matters that were taken. There comes a point where somebody says, I'm no longer part of this coalition, which Councillor Bobani made that clear. The first act in a coalition, doesn't matter what it is, the first thing that you agree on is that you shall never vote with the opposition. Otherwise, you are not in a coalition. You are working with those people. And Councillor Bobani proceeded to do that. So that's no longer a dispute then. That's somebody having declared, I'm not a member of this. Somebody who then proceeds to march against the municipality. Somebody who then sponsors a motion of no confidence against the city. Therefore, how can you say you are in coalition with those people? You are not. So there was no dispute. There was just a councillor who decided that they are no longer a member of the coalition. So that settled the matter for us. Mr. Manyati was dealing at local structures, and I think Mr. Trollip will respond to that particular question. In as far as the discussions between the national leadership and all of that, we had constant contact with the leadership of the FF. I'd been speaking to them continuously, so it's not like we had formalized meetings. Our agreement with them was always that when there's an issue, we'll meet, but then we can talk. And we've always been able to speak. So it's not like the relationship is dysfunctional. We work and we speak with the people. So
with regard to Councillor Manyati's relationship with the DA, I'll just read you one SMS when the first motion of no confidence was mooted against us. Good afternoon, Mayor. Democrats are all rallying behind you and Speaker because we are clear vote of no confidence is not about you, but it's about us as a DA family. Stay strong and focused. The DA will still be in power even after tomorrow's council meeting. ANC's backdoor victory won't succeed. Now, that was Councillor Manyati to me on the 29th of November. In the build-up to these last initiatives with the motions of no confidence, Councillor Manyati has been giving us feedback. In fact, there was even recently a piece of propaganda about a DA pamphlet which he countered with a local journalist and stood firmly behind the fact that this was just propaganda, ANC propaganda, and then he made an about turn in council yesterday. So it's very clear that Councillor Manyati had been turned. There was no indication whatsoever before that he had any happiness in the Democratic Alliance. It was a great surprise to all of us that he did not vote yesterday.
Thanks, Apol. Thanks everyone for coming. The mayor needs to get back to do the rest of his work.
Siyasebenza.
Can we have you live right now on Wednesday?
Sure. What's that? I should sit live for NCA. I'm happy to do Afrikaans. Sure.
Please do the SABC in Gunila. You did good, go mention that the Mishwe, Cornasasa complaining.